going on, or lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we got to talk about Israel and Gaza and Palestine and Jagmeet Singh virtue signaling super hard, right? He's virtue signaling, his turban's changing color. New Democrats are bringing a motion to Parliament on March 18th and demanding Justin Trudeau take a stand. Add your voice to the calls ahead of the vote. Fill Justin Trudeau's inbox and demand he does the right thing. That was a terrorist act, right? Implying that Jagmeet Singh could change the color of his turban through his emotions. That's a terrorist act. That's a hate speech. I did a terrorism. I did not. I'm just joking. That's a joke. Okay. Reject NDP motion on the war in Gaza, says the Toronto Sun. It's an editorial. I don't know who's attributed to the editorial. Post Media News. On Monday, the House of Commons will vote on an NDP motion calling for a ceasefire and for Canada to officially recognize Palestine and suspend all trade in military goods and technology with Israel. It also wants the Trudeau government to ban extremist Israeli settlers from Canada and impose sanctions on Israeli officials who incite genocide. I would love to understand what the definition of inciting genocide is, because we're being told that not offering mutilation care for people who are mentally ill, who believe that they're the other gender, and they want you to cut them up so they feel more like the other gender. We're told that if you don't cut them up at their request, that's a genocide. So I'm very interested with the hate speech laws. If, that man can't be a woman is actually genocidal, inciting genocide. Could it be? Maybe. It's very concerning because you could do the mental gymnastics to get there. And I think those mental gymnastics are actually easier to accomplish than some of the other mental gymnastics we've been forced to endure. Yes, you can take your mask off when you're sitting, but if you're standing, you have to have the mask on. Walking to the bathroom, mask on. At the table, sitting down, mask off. What? Right? So the mental gymnastics are not that far off from things that we've already been forced to accept. So it's one of those things where I think, It demands, back to the article, it demands the immediate restoration of humanitarian aid to Gaza. This is the NDP motion. And for the permanent restoration of funding to UNRWA, UNRWA, the controversial UN Palestinian Relief Organization, some of whose members participated in the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. Canada, despite announcing the suspension of UNRWA funding in January, when the news became public, never stopped funding UNRWA because its next payment was scheduled for April, which the Trudeau government has already said it will make. So, yes, we're suspending the payments, and then no payment was due. Okay, we're not suspending the payments anymore. They've cleaned things up. No payment was due, and still not due yet. So, will we suspend the funding? Pending. We'll see. Changes can happen. Andrew Coyne is reporting about this. This is a Globe editorial, and this is incredible. I don't have a Globe subscription, so I'm not going to click into the article. We're just reading the tweet on this, but this is a quote from the article. If the Canadian Army got into a shooting war, it would largely be out of ammunition after 3 days. Globe editorial: denial and delay is not a defense policy. Our defense doesn't exist. The government is wholesale bringing in people to destabilize our country, it seems. Destabilize with housing prices, destabilize with cost of living crisis. That includes food, fuel, energy, all of it, right? And not just fuel for your car, but energy for your home, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of it has to do with the carbon tax, make no mistake. So people are absolutely at the end of their ability to deal with all of this. And I mean, the government, their main job is to make sure that Canada is secure, and they're not doing it. And instead, they're focusing on diversity and equity and making sure that illegal people who have arrived in Canada illegally, or people who have arrived here via different statuses, et cetera, are not feeling unhappy or something to that effect, have jobs, et cetera. And this is a U.S. guy, Wall Street Apes is sharing this, and this U.S. guy is talking about the incentives the U.S. government gives to hire illegals or people who are just arriving to the United States. I don't know if they got papers or not, but that's a big departure from when I was growing up, because it used to be that people who were arriving illegally had to work under the table, and it was a very, very difficult pathway to finding legitimate work. And now the government is incentivizing it. So here's a minute on this. And in Canada, he talks about Canada at 55 seconds, and he says Canada's giving $40,000 for this. So here we go.
So I couldn't leave it alone. I wanted to find out, do companies that hire refugees in America illegally, are there any tax breaks for these people? And there most certainly is. It's called a work opportunity tax credit, and it's $3,000 per hire. Back in 2014, I can just imagine what it is today. I'm going to be looking for this for sure. I'm going to get back to you. In the comments below, tell me what you think that each one of these hires is worth. Because I know that I did an expose on the LMIA a few weeks back. And I was...
Oh, he's not there. Sorry, I thought the video was repeating. Here we go.
Getting people saying that in Canada, they pay up to $40,000. Unbelievable. Imagine the cost savings on that. You just pay them $16.50 an hour. Man, you're golden. There you have it.
So what's going on is there's two different things happening. One is the government is just giving people cell phones, hotels, and monthly stipends, right? A lot of it has to do with the Canada Child Benefit, things like that. So you have 5-6 children, they're worth $300 each. You do the math. And so, plus other monies that they get for coming into the country and being in, I don't know, a bad way or whatever. And the other part, though, is companies themselves get incentives to hire people from other countries. It doesn't matter where. And the government pays half the salary or a healthy amount of the salary. So if you're paying somebody $40,000, and I mean, it's even more than that, but if you're paying somebody $40,000, the government will pay $20,000 to the company or the person to have the job there for that person in the company. See? And so I know a lot of people who are being impacted by that. And it's incredible because it's reducing, like Boeing has the DEI policies that are reducing the quality of the Boeing product. The inability to work cohesively with a team that speaks the same language even is happening because of these policies, because the company looks at it and says, well, we could get 8 guys for this much, or we could get double that, right, for this much, right? And so they do that because the financial incentive is there. This is a Sean Fraser ad about housing, and it's a mess. It's a mess. It's too long and it's meandering. It doesn't actually go anywhere. Usually when somebody who understands what their job is with a video or with any kind of entertainment really is you're taking people on a walk. Even a song is a little walk because it's a story. You're walking around and like maybe you like to see the trees in the park and you have a particular, a cherry blossom or something like that that's blooming and you're like, oh, I love going to see that, and you walk around it and you look at it and right, it's like a walk. And so the video it's not taking you anywhere. There's nothing interesting to look at. It's just rhetoric. It's rhetoric. It's little snippets of rhetoric that we've heard before. They bring up Shackgate, right? It's not a shack. Give me a break. And so what? I don't care. I got bored watching this video. I stopped listening to it after less than a minute. And then by 3 minutes in, I was like, what is this about again? And I went back to the beginning to try and figure out what this video is about. It's about housing. But there's no cohesive real message. I mean, I guess kind of. You could find a cohesive message, but there's nothing that jumped out at me. And I thought to myself, that's what I think about this video. So Sean Fraser is trying to attack Poilievre about housing, and he says Poilievre doesn't care. At the end of the video, they said Poilievre cares about being prime minister. The only thing he cares about is himself. So he does care. He cares about himself. Like he doesn't care, or he does care, right? He does care about himself. But don't say he doesn't care if he does care. The whole video is a mess. It's a mess. Here we go.
Pierre Poilievre pretends to care about helping you find a home. The truth is, he doesn't. Listen to the way he talks about starter homes for young people in this country.
If I was doing this graphic, I would have taken the glasses off first. I would have had him, like the new him with the glasses on, and then I would have taken the glasses off, and then I would have done the rest of it. It's so silly. I mean, you could take these little swipes at people, and it's so fun. I mean, it's kind of fun, right? Like, nobody else looks at that as kind of fun. Like these little digs you could get in, and I mean, whatever. Poilievre, Trudeau, they're all the same. Right? They're all really the same. I'd love to be proven wrong by that. I'd love Canada to do well. It looks like Poilievre's going to be the next prime minister, but it's the same shit, different pile. Excuse my French. They had an opportunity and they blew it. The whole video is a mess.
He doesn't. Listen to the way he talks about starter homes for young people in this country.
A tiny little shack.
The woman who lives there
The shack Was it like $1 million shack, right? Or $500,000 shack? Come on, right? Like, you got to have context here.
Defended her house.
He called it a shack. A shack. That was a little embarrassing also, because
Yeah, because you live in a shack.
it's not.
And here's his perspective on affordable housing.
They don't want nationalized government control.
Blah, 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 blah. So they say, we care for you. We care about you, Poilievre.
Crisis, because Pierre doesn't care about the people that it impacts most. Pierre doesn't care about your community. Pierre doesn't care about building more homes. The thing that Pierre cares about most
When I'm prime minister, when I'm prime minister
is Pierre.
So he cares deeply. Pierre doesn't care, says Sean. And Justin Trudeau says the same. Hold on a sec. Out of order tabs. I'm firing that producer. Justin says he really doesn't care. He really doesn't care. Well, except at the end part of the video where he cares a lot about this other thing. But see, his actions tell a different story, quite honestly. Right here he is in Fredericton, excuse me. This is an hour-long, 53-minute long speech. You can see the whole thing. So, I mean, that's interesting. That's different is not the right word, but there's not officially an election on right now. Poilievre, as leader of the opposition, is doing a countrywide tour, right, to axe the tax, and it's an April 1st kind of timeline. So he's tent-polling this. He's making this an issue, right? And the other conservative leaders weren't doing that. So this is election-style politicking on an off period of time on a specific issue for the express purpose of maybe derailing the issue. And if he can't derail the issue, then he's going to use that as political hay. Like, we asked you because the affordability crisis is bad and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Canadians can't afford anything. So we asked you to do this. You did this for the eastern provinces, but you haven't done this for the rest of the provinces, blah, 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 making an issue out of it. Right. Whereas, and so people will look at that and say, okay, he represents us because look at how hard he's fighting for this. It's interesting. It's a departure from what we've seen from the conservative leaders in recent history. So when they say he doesn't care about you and he only cares about being prime minister, I don't know about that, right? I think he maybe cares about running a tight political party, a tight political ship. Now, a party that is beholden to the dairy cartel and a party that signed people on to the Agenda 21 and a party that, didn't abolish the GST, but Harper had a pretty good financial record, right? I can't knock Harper's financial record. So, like, there are pluses and minuses about what's going on. But just specifically zooming in on what they're saying here, they're making the argument he doesn't care and he only cares about himself. And I'm saying I don't think that's true. It does. That's not borne out. It seems like more political, ridiculous, liberal spin. And again, it's arguing kind of over minor changes because they're both the same. Really. And here's the Liberals again. They're attacking Poilievre on housing. Part of this video as well is talking about how when he was the Minister of Housing. And it's on the left here. And it was 2015 when he was the Minister of Housing, but that wasn't a full year. The election happened in September, right? So Poilievre, during 2015, would have low numbers because of the election and the truncated time that he was minister. He didn't get a full 12 months in 2015, right? So something to be aware of, but it's not mentioned in the video either, right? So it's all politicking, but they're attacking him. They say, we're taking action to build more homes faster. Pierre Poilievre's housing record speaks for itself. So 0 new apartments, 0 co-ops, 6 affordable housing units. It's not the government's job to build housing. It's the government's job to build roads. It's the government's job to have responsible immigration, to negotiate with foreign countries. It's not the government's job to build housing. The Liberals want to be the provincial rulers of the country. They can't do the federal job. If they can't do the federal job, why would anybody think that they can do the provincial job? They can't. Liberals plan to build. We're planning. You know what I'm planning? I'm planning on being a millionaire. Yep. Millionaire a couple times over by Saturday. Oh, it's Sunday. I'll readjust my plan. A plan is nothing. A plan means nothing. I've heard people say, I'm going to start something. And I ask, and I like to dig to find out how serious people are. I'm losing weight. What's your daily calorie goal? Oh, you're not losing weight. Sorry. So I like to dig into it a little bit, right? What is your plan? And most of the time, a plan is bullshit. They don't actually know how they're going to go from this to that. They just say it because it sounds nice. These people don't actually know how they're going to go from this to that, other than take your money, take more money, question mark, profit. That's it. That's what their plan is. their plan, and it's bullshit because they don't actually have a plan and they don't have the capability to do it. In 1994, California passed Proposition 187. Proposition 187, also known as the Save Our State Initiative, was a 1994 ballot initiative in California to establish a state-run citizenship screening system and prohibit illegal immigrants from using non-emergency healthcare, public education, and other services in the state of California. Voters passed the proposed law at a referendum in 1994. Now, one of the sneaky things here, like all you need is a little bit. All you need is a tiny little sliver of somebody to say that sounds reasonable, and we'll start there. This says the system, the screening system, will, like a citizenship screening system, will prohibit illegal immigrants from using non-emergency healthcare. So in this bill, they enshrined emergency healthcare for illegal immigrants. Right? The whole thing, all the extra language didn't mean a lick, because now they've got a legal standard for passing illegal immigrants get access to emergency healthcare. And then all of a sudden, well, why can't they have Medicaid? Why can't they have dental? You're committing a genocide because you're not giving dental to these migrant children. The Poilievre strategy. I'm still not saying it right. I don't think I'm saying it right. And Wokeness says, does this sound familiar? Poilievre. I had James Lindsay say this yesterday, and here it is from Wikipedia. The Poilievre strategy is a political strategy outlined in 1966, and it is the strategy of forcing political change through societal collapse through orchestrated crises. The Poilievre strategy seeks to hasten the fall of capitalism by overloading the government bureaucracy with a flood of impossible demands, amassing a massive unpayable national debt, and other methods such as unfettered immigration, thus pushing society into crisis and economic collapse. In related news, here's one job, crazy lineup for a job at a London, Ontario LCBO. The LCBO is the liquor store, right? We have the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, LCBO. And so this is where we go to spend $70 on a bottle of vodka that in the United States would cost $20. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. But this is the lineup. Look at this. Look how big this lineup is. There are tons of people. I wish they'd pan over, but there's a ton of people trying to get into this job interview, and it seems like we're being overwhelmed. It doesn't seem like we're bringing people in to fill jobs that we can't fill because we don't have enough people here. That seems like a huge lie, like contact tracing and safe and effective and all the rest. Pierre Poilievre, this is from Fredericton. I already talked about that. Here's True North and 6 candidates vying for Alberta NDP leadership as deadline closes. I'm going to let you know what the outcome of this, okay? All the parliamentarians, all the people who have already been MLAs in the NDP in Alberta and who have done the work of, understanding how to do that, and they would be a better leader than Nenshi necessarily, just for the long in the tooth and the experience in Parliament and understanding the procedural stuff, because the procedural stuff is really how you get things done. It's why Pierre Poilievre has been such a thorn in Trudeau's side recently, because procedurally he understands what's going on and he uses it to his advantage until they change the Parliament rules to benefit them. But honestly, I think that on one side of things, if you have somebody who's very charismatic and somebody who has a large following, it might benefit you to put them into a leadership position, because not everybody wants to be a leader, right? And Nenshi's got experience being the mayor of Calgary, but does that translate directly into being the leader of a provincial party or premier? I would say no, but here's what's going to happen. Nenshi's going to win. Why do I say that? Because this whole position was created for him. Rachel Notley vacated for him. So Nenshi's going to win. I'm not even going to read the rest of them because why? Nenshi's going to win. That's my prediction. There you go. So there are 5 other people, but watch for them not to matter, because Nenshi's going to win. And then Nenshi's going to have a fire and brimstone campaign, and then he's going to lose against Danielle Smith. So there's your next, couple of years, Alberta. Let's move on. Let's talk about money. Here is one of the Convoy supporters who got their bank account frozen, and he is talking to American thought leaders, and this is the commercial for that. It's interesting. Here we go.
There I was, no cash, no access to my credit cards, and I had no money for gas, I had no money for lodging, nothing for food. What did I do?
In 2022, Eddie Cornell was at home in New Brunswick, Canada, when he began to hear chatter of a truckers' convoy making its way to Ottawa to protest the COVID lockdowns and vaccine mandates.
And I thought, I need to be there.
Little did he know that he would become publicly marked and have his bank account frozen.
I felt betrayed. I've never convicted of a crime. I wasn't charged of a crime, and yet my government found it necessary to label me and freeze everything I own.
Today, he is the co-founder of Veterans for Freedom and has filed a civil lawsuit against the Trudeau administration.
Citizens and ex-military people didn't return any violence. Nothing, not a punch, nothing. And to be beaten that way and treated like that, the world saw. They know what happened.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Don't forget to subscribe to our...
There you go. So the story is getting out, but I don't know that it's going to change anything at this point in time. I mean, maybe in the future. However, as a species, we have a very, very bad memory. We're very, very bad at learning historical lessons. Here is the banker cartels, and it is a cartel. They're talking about, this is a conversation about how the banking cartel is a cartel in the true sense, like a banana cartel or whatever cartel. It doesn't matter the good. They operate in the same way. And here's this conversation.
Well, you asked the question in your book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, what is the Federal Reserve, and what is your answer?
Well, what it is, it's a cartel. It's not a government agency. It has the appearance of it being a government agency, and they went to great lengths to give it that facade. It does have the power of government because Congress voted to give the power of enforcement to it. But in its essence, underneath it, it's a cartel. It's nothing different than a banana cartel or an oil cartel or sugar cartel. It happens to be a banking cartel. They got together, they drew up the rules and regulations for their own industry, to self-regulate their own industry is what cartels do, and then they sent it to Congress, and they took off the label at the top that said banking cartel, and they erased that, and they said Federal Reserve Act. Congress passed it into law, and that's why we think it's a government agency, is because if you don't obey the rules that they set down for their own industry, you go to prison. And so it looks like a government agency. But basically the answer to your question is
it's a cartel. And here's one more I thought was interesting.
Tells us.
He's talking, the Bible warns against usury, which is how our money works. Unfortunately. Here we go.
The problem is that when a nation borrows from a bank, as Proverbs tells us, the borrower becomes servant to the lender. That is not sovereignty. So what is the result? The nation...
Like that single sentence, if you are in this situation, you become subservient to the lender. If the borrower becomes subservient to the lender, how can we be in a situation where we are equals or the boss in a situation where we're borrowing from some other entity? Just that alone, I think, is enough. There's more, but it's a 2-minute clip, and we've got other things to do on our walk this morning. Wide Awake Media says, if these supermarkets hadn't spent the last 4 years treating people wishing to pay with cash as carriers of disease, this news would only be slightly hilarious, but they did. So it's off the charts hilarious. The Sainsbury's, which is like Walmart, and Tesco, again like Walmart, were forced to cancel home deliveries on Saturday as Britain's 2 biggest supermarkets were hit by IT meltdowns. An error in an overnight software update has left Sainsbury's unable to take contactless payments in stores or fulfill online food orders. So, like, not great, right? Not great. But one of the things that I thought immediately was, if we have a digital currency, digital social credit system, all of that all set up, it wouldn't take much of an outage to like tear the whole system to the ground. You know, like, oh man, we know that didn't work, but this time it'll work. And definitely all those people who couldn't access food or their money or anything like that, you know, that won't happen again probably, right? Like they can't guarantee it. So, and sure, I mean, you have bank failures and things. But if a bank fails, like, there are big consequences for that. So what happens if the payment system, the digital, your social credit system and the digital payment, digital currency doesn't work? Who's on the hook for that? Because the government has a vested interest in not prosecuting anybody for screw ups like that, because that'll undermine their system. So this failure undermines the whole idea of we're all moving to a digital society. You need to have the analog cash backup, because in the absence of internet, or in the absence of all of the rest of the infrastructure that we've built up, including security through banks and electronic fund transfers and all the rest of it, in absence of all that, you need a way to exchange goods with, symbols like money, right? Is what we do. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing, because realistically, I don't think there's a situation where you can just remove cash completely but that implies that you want the best for your citizens, right? Rather than control being the paramount concern. Lee Humphreys is responding to Global News, and Global News is reporting the Liberal government has indicated that Ottawa is looking at how it might put Canadian pension funds towards growing the economy. Oh, so say goodbye to the Canadian pension fund. So that was a nice little, chunk of change while it lasted. Lee Humphrey says, in other words, Chrétien got away with taking surplus funds from the CAF RCMP pension fund and the EI fund to pay down massive deficits in the mid-90s. So why not go one step further and also raid the CPP fund too? But instead of using the extra cash on deficits, we can use it to bribe our way to another minority government. So yeah, we're going to spend some more. We're just spending your pension this time, but don't worry, it's going to pay off 3-to-1. Every dollar spent, we're going to make 3. That's the nonsense for the investment bank, the infrastructure investment bank, right? For every dollar spent, we were going to generate $3 to $5 of economic activity. Did that happen? No, they just took all the money. Here's Global News. Pension funds are Canada's crown jewels. Should they invest more at home? Well, right now, I think the WEF is managing the pension funds wherever they're sitting. I'm not going to read this right now because I have not read it, and I forgot that I didn't read it. So link is in the description if you're interested. But fundamentally, I don't want the government in charge of the pension funds. And I don't know if it matters, the breakdown of it, or the sales pitch that they're going to give to people. Like, oh, it's going to be super great. Yeah, but it would be even more super great if you didn't have control over the pensions of the Canadians, because those people in government right now, it seems like they hate Canadians. Here's Bill, and he's responding to this. He says, say goodbye to the Canadian pension fund. And yeah, Dave says they're saying that now because it's already gone. Excuse me. Remember when those numbers they promised to release for an app? Have you looked at the CPP recently? 10-year annualized rate 10%, 5-year annualized rate 7.8, 2023 rate 1.3. Do you know who is managing the CCP fund? It's the WEF, right? And I was sure that I'd seen that, and here it is. It's the webpage I've shown before. It's headquartered in the United Kingdom, but the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, CPPIB, is a professional investment management organization that invests the funds not needed by the Canadian pension plan to pay current benefits for 20 million contributors and beneficiaries in order to build diversified portfolio assets. CPP invests in public equity, private equity, real estate, infrastructure, and fixed income instruments, headquartered in Toronto with offices in Hong Kong, London, Luxembourg, Mumbai, New York City, San Francisco, Sao Paulo, and Sydney. It's governed and managed independently from the Canadian Pension Plan. At 31 December 22, the CPP fund totaled $536 billion, and a social contract to transform our world by 2030 is what the WEF is trying for. On this screenshot here, it says headquarters United Kingdom. So I wanted to see what the actual live site said. It says headquarters Canada. So that's weird. That's a little strange, right? In 2023, the fund totaled $590 billion. That's interesting. This screenshot, when was this one done? $536 billion at the end of 2022. So the CPP investment fund is growing with the World Economic Forum managing it. But again, I think there's snakes in the grass. Jack is responding to Gold Telegraph. Gold says, breaking news, Russian finance minister says that the BRICS group of nations can eventually switch to a new payment system based on digital currencies or use blockchain. And there it is. It's all out in the open. So BRICS is moving forward and much more nimble than the US dollar. So that's interesting. And Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful